What a week in week 5. We are here from San Diego. Sorry we did not do a live stream for week 5. I was traveling. Now I'm here in San Diego making this video for you all. Hopefully you can hear me all right. We are using my phone to do this video because I will not be back home in time to make this video on my regular setup. But we're just going to jump in week 6. First up, we have Atlanta United versus New York Red Bull. Atlanta, I thought that they were going to lose last weekend, and I thought they were going to lose 3-0, but here they lose 6-1 against Columbus. Yes, international duty and everything like that, but they should not have lost 6-1. I mean, the week before they won 5-1, and then they're going to lose 6-1 the next week. That's very disappointing. New York Red Bull, they did draw with Charlotte 1-1 last week. I think that with Atlanta having everybody back, the way that they were playing beforehand, I think that they're going to get the job done at home. I think that they're going to beat the Red Bull 2-1. It's not going to be a slaughter either way, but 2-1 Atlanta United. So moving on, we have Columbus Crew versus Real Salt Lake. The Crew last week, we just talked about it. Atlanta United 6-1 at home. They were playing against Real Salt Lake, who I thought was going to win last week over St. Louis. Or no, they were going to draw, I believe, and it did not happen. St. Louis is just on another level. Real Salt Lake loses 4-0 against St. Louis, and I think that they're going to lose here. I actually think that they're going to get shut out again because they are on the road, and I think that Columbus Crew win this game 3-0 over Real Salt Lake. So that takes us to FC Cincinnati versus Inter Miami. FC Cincinnati won on the road in Nashville 1-0 last weekend, and Inter Miami lost against Chicago Fire 3-2, which was very surprising to me. It is what it is. I think, though, that FC Cincinnati will get the job done at home over Inter Miami because of how inconsistent Miami has been. I think that they win this matchup 2-0. So now we move on. We have LA Galaxy versus Seattle Sounders. LA Galaxy have been they've been a letdown to me. Last weekend, they drew to Portland 0-0, and then Seattle Sounders won their match against Sporting KC on the road 4-1. Those guys are on fire too. I know that everyone's talking about St. Louis, but Seattle has done a great job this year. Yeah, they did lose to Cincinnati away, and then they drew with LAFC, which that was a terrible game. But anyway, I think that Seattle go on the road here, and LA Galaxy continue to struggle. I mean, is Chicharito that big of a game changer for them to have them win games? I don't know. But I will say Seattle go on the road, win this matchup 3-2 over the LA Galaxy. So we have the New England Revs versus NYCFC. The Revs have also surprised me this year. I have gotten them wrong. People were pointing it out. I know. Them and St. Louis both. Yeah, they've been doing a lot better than what we thought. The Revs won last weekend 2-1 over DC United away, where NYCFC lost to Houston Dynamo 1-0 away. I'm going to do it. I should not do this. But I think that NYCFC walk in and get a point at Gillette Stadium. I think this matchup ends in a 2-2 draw. Yes, I'm going against the Revs. I think that this streak that they're having, it's going to come to an end. I feel like I feel it, but I could be wrong, and that's okay. You guys can tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. But I'm going to go with the Revs winning drawing with NYCFC 2-2. So that leads us into Orlando City versus Nashville SC. Orlando City won last week 2-1 over the Union. Nashville, however, lost at home against FC Cincinnati, which is kind of a letdown. They need a striker. I talked about it on the podcast with United States of Soccer last week. They need a striker. Sapong just isn't enough up there, and Bunbury isn't enough. They need someone to help Mukhtar out there in the midfield or the strike. They need a goal scorer. So I think that their struggles are going to continue, and I think that Orlando City, they're playing pretty well, drawing a lot of their games. Yeah, they did lose to Charlotte at home, but then they turn around and beat the Union away too. So I don't know what's up with them, but I do think that they get the win over Nashville SC at home 1-0 at Explorer Stadium. So speaking on the Philadelphia Union, we have them versus Sporting Kansas City here next. They lost last week. The Union did 2-1 against Orlando City at home, where Sporting Kansas City lost 4-1 at home to Seattle. Sporting Kansas City are struggling. I think that their struggles continue here. I think that playing at Subaru Park, the Union aren't going to let the fans down and lose 2 in a row. I think the Union go in, get the job done here, 2-1 over Sporting Kansas City. Next up, we have Toronto FC versus Charlotte FC. Toronto walked in and got a point on the Earthquakes. We thought that the Earthquakes were going to win last video and because of international duty, but they walk in, get a draw. Yes, it was a 0-0, and from the sounds of it, like I said, I didn't really get to watch anything. I got to see a couple highlights. I've been busy since coming out here, but they draw 0-0, and then Charlotte drew 1-1 with the Red Bulls. This was a tough one for me. I think this was the toughest one for me to pick for this weekend, but I think that Toronto is going to get the job done at home, 1-0 over Charlotte FC. So that leads us into Chicago Fire versus DC United. Chicago won last weekend 3-2 over Inter Miami, where DC United lost to the Revs at home 2-1. This game is going to end in a draw, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw there at Soldier Field. I just think that these two teams are equivalent. I don't think one team's better than the other. If I would say that, I would say that DC is better than Chicago Fire if I was like contradicting myself there. But I think with them playing away at Chicago, I think it ends in a 2-2 draw there in Chicago. Now we have FC Dallas versus Portland Timbers, who have a million injuries. But Timbers did get a draw. It was at home, unfortunately, against LA Galaxy last weekend, and FC Dallas lost to LAFC on the road. Portland is just... they're unfortunate with all the injuries, and I think that it's not going to get any better anytime soon until you start getting guys back. So I think that FC Dallas win this game pretty easily, and I think it's going to be a 3-1 win, and that one goal from Portland's going to come late. It's going to be like a gimme goal, I guess. But yeah, 3-1 FC Dallas. So that takes us to the hottest team in the league, and that is St. Louis City versus Minnesota United. Last week, St. Louis won 4-0 over Real Salt Lake. I really thought that was going to be a different result. Definitely wrong. Minnesota United drew 1-1 with Vancouver Whitecaps. I think that St. Louis's streak is going to have to end sometime. It's going to have to end sometime. And I don't know if it'll happen here against Minnesota because Minnesota is very up and down. But I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to say St. Louis City wins 3-0 over Minnesota United. They're just too good right now. There's no one-star player. I feel like they're just playing well as a team. I got to see a little bit of the highlights for their game against Real Salt Lake just because I was surprised that they won 4-0. They're just on fire, and I think that continues here. It will come to an end sooner or later, but I think they win this game pretty easily, 3-0 over Minnesota United. So next up, we have Colorado Rapids versus LAFC. Colorado drew with Austin last week, 1-1. Well, in their last match, 1-1. LAFC beat FC Dallas 2-1 in their last match. Colorado, I don't think that they have won one. I think that they might have, but right now they are on a streak that is not very good, just draws and losses. And LAFC, yeah, they did win against FC Dallas. That's a pretty big win, but they drew and lost their last two. But they did play against the Seattle Sounders and drew 0-0. Seattle Sounders are really good. I think, though, that Colorado Rapids, with them being at home, I think that they get a draw here against LAFC. I think that they're getting there, and they're not going to get over the hump against a team like LAFC. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw there in Colorado. So that takes us to our second to last game. We have San Jose Earthquake versus the Houston Dynamo. San Jose let me down last week. I thought that was going to be a pretty easy win for them over Toronto, especially being at home. But here they get a draw. Whereas Houston Dynamo are currently on a 2-game winning streak with a win last week against NYCFC. I'm going to do it again, and I don't let me down, San Jose. You're killing me with that Earthquake. So I think that they're going to do it. I think that they beat Houston 2-1. I'm going to go with that, even though they let me down last week. I'm going to stay with them, and I think that they get the dub here. So our final matchup of the weekend is Vancouver Whitecaps versus CF Montreal. Last week, Vancouver tied with Minnesota United 1-1, where Montreal won against the Union 3-2 in their last match and got their first dub of the year. And we did call that game that CF Montreal was going to win. I think this is going to be a good game. These two teams are fairly good against each other and very competitive. The outcome is 7 wins for Vancouver, 1 draw, and 7 wins for Montreal. So these two teams are very competitive against each other, very good against each other. But I think that 1 draw turns into 2 draws for this matchup. I think the matchup ends in a 2-2 draw there in Vancouver. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully everything sounds good, looks good. Here in San Diego, it's been an awesome trip. Like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on Saturday for a live stream. I will put that poll up pretty soon, so go vote. And thank you for watching. We'll see you then.